super excited to bring Bobby up here. Obviously, joined us officially earlier this week, but a guy that I've known for probably close to 20 years in this business. Competed against him first on a head coaching level when he was a coach at UNLV. Had known about his reputation and all that goes into it from there. Actually, after that point, too, he and I were beginning to advance in our careers, shared a couple of AFCA, American Football Coaches Association subcommittees. We're on the board of trustees together now. A guy that I've known for a long time, but actually just wrapped up as the president of our entire organization. So I've never been on the ballot, so he already got me beat to that one. But just a tremendous person, a character, high standards in a lot of different levels. Has been a special teams coordinator, has been involved on defense. I thought when this transition was going to happen, I really wanted to have someone who had a lot of experience, a lot of not just in the moment that they're going to live in, but just a tenured experience in making decisions in critical moments, making plays, from calling plays to making decisions during Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to lead to Saturday, just the process and detail. So it was really important for me to have that role, and Bobby kind of fit the description of that in every way, shape, or form. The moment came for me when Aaron had an opportunity to interview for an NFL job that I may not have him in that position, and that's when I began to really become real. I'd obviously always have a plan. Said this to you several times. Every position in my building, I have a list of 3 to 4 guys before the year starts. Had a lot of transition, obviously 2 on offense and several on defense. I knew this was going to be a year of transition. To hold a staff together for 2 or 3 years is very uncommon in today's world, and going into this season, there was a lot made about we had our returning play callers on offense, defense, and special teams going into this season. I just knew if we had a good season, that probably wasn't going to be able to maintain and go forward. So been thinking about this moment way before it happened, but super excited to have it here. I'll let him answer some questions. I'll follow up on the backside of it and go from there. So with that, I'll introduce Bobby Hal.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate the opportunity. Good to see everybody. I'd be remiss if I didn't start first by thanking Montana, and that's my school, that's my university, that was my football program, and I truly enjoyed everything about it. All my best friends in the world, for the most part, are there. Most of them are alums of that place. I had 2 tenures there as a head coach, and loved every minute of it. And just kind of I got asked why the move to Illinois, and it was kind of time for me to do something besides be the head coach. And I didn't know what that was exactly. And, I really wanted to get back to my roots, which is being on the defensive side of the football, and I wasn't sure what that meant. But I did know it was time for me to not be the head coach anymore, just because I wanted to get back to coaching defense. And then so I want to get back to my roots. And then when Coach B called, now my new thing is I want to help Coach Bielema win and hopefully win big. So that is why I am here. That's how it ended for me as the head coach at Montana, and I'm very, very grateful for my time there. I'm also very grateful to be standing here in Champaign, Illinois today. So with that, I'll take some questions from you guys, talk about what you want to talk about.
That's what you did say. It wasn't enjoyable. Well, first of all, welcome to Champaign.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks.
It wasn't enjoyable anymore to be a head coach. So what kind of appealed to you about being a defensive coordinator and being it, especially under Bret here in the Big Ten?
Yeah, it's a multifaceted question there. I mean, the thing I kind of hung on to being part of the defensive plan and the special teams at Montana because the reason I got into coaching is I wanted to coach. And the one thing I found, and it's become more intrusive in recent years, is I became less of a football coach and more of an administrator and a personnel guy. And I really wanted to get back to coaching. So that's why, for me personally, the transition. And then obviously the chance to come here and work for Coach. We at Illinois have one of the best head coaches in the entire world of football, not just college football. And he's highly organized, structured, knows what he's doing. He's a great football coach. He's a great guy, and I had a pretty good idea what this program was about. And so all of a sudden to have the chance to be a part of that was really, really exciting.
Coach, how would you describe your role during your tenure as head coach? Just game planning defensively and play calling. How kind of deep into the weeds did you get defensively?
Well, I mean, from a defensive standpoint, I mean, it's the defense that I developed that I wanted to run. When I was an assistant coach, I did a lot of research in that area and got to work on the defensive side of the ball, and then put it together. And then when I got back to Montana for the second time, then we installed this defense. So, you know, I was involved in it on a game plan basis on third down, the red zone, and those sort of things. But then in terms of the installation process, taught it to each and every coach that came in the door.
When you retired, did you think at some point that your coaching career was over, or did you know the whole time that you would get back into it, just not in a head coaching role?
Yeah, well, I've been really fortunate in my coaching career. Every time I've been out, the phones rang, and this time was no exception. And so as that was transpiring, I had hoped that someone would think I could provide some value to them, and I did. I actually got quite a few calls like right away. Was really excited about that. I mean, certainly most excited about this, but I didn't think I was done coaching. I just, you know, as was mentioned here a second ago, I didn't want to be in the head coach's office anymore.
In terms of game call or calling the defense on game day, what kind of adjustments do you think will go into you? I'm assuming you'll be the one doing that, go into doing that.
Yeah, I'll do that. You know, I always kind of kept my hand in it, and in some either broad form or directly calling it. So I did call it some there, and then I was involved in the process on game day. So I don't think that's going to be a huge difference. There will be a lot of input from people, but actual calling it, I'll do that.
Is there a specific position group you anticipate you'll be working with more here at Illinois?
You know, I hope to be walking around and overseeing all of it, especially this first spring, because I have to install with everybody, and I want to make sure that everything's kind of the way we want it, and kind of make sure the communication's right within the staff, thus getting communicated and taught to the players.
Have you ever been here before this last week?
When I landed here on Monday, I'd never been in Champaign, Illinois before. There's not as many mountains as home, for sure. It's a little flatter, but you know, I grew up in a small town, went to college in a college town. This place is right up my alley for sure.
What was the time frame like maybe between when Bret reached out to stepping off the plane on Monday as the defense coordinator?
Yeah, well, you know, Coach mentioned we're at the AFCA convention and we're in some meetings and on the board together, and we were talking some ball basically in defensive football, and excuse me, he had brought up that he'd seen some of what we were doing and was intrigued by it. So we were just kind of talking football, and then I didn't tell anybody what I was doing in terms of retirement except my wife, and so I retired. They announced it, and obviously, you know, you guys know how the media works this day and age better than me. It was pretty fast that it was out there, and then shortly thereafter he called me, and we were clinicking a little more, and he was talking about it. And then, you know, it's kind of a blur to me right now, but that I mean, I retired on a Wednesday, and then he and I were talking pretty serious by Sunday.
What did you like about the defense, bringing it over from Rocky in your time there, and what do you think makes that defense so?
Yeah, so the genesis of this defense goes all the way back to Joe Lee Dunn at like Mississippi State and places, okay, Memphis and those places. And that's where Coach Long learned it from him. I learned it from Coach Long, worked with great guys there. You know, we all put our own spin on it like we do. You know, football, nothing's the same. I mean, year to year, everything evolves in football. I mean, you better evolve with the game and the times and do different things. So this defense has evolved significantly from those days, but I took a lot of it from Coach, and the thing about it was, and it's the reason that I took the job at San Diego State. Like I said, you asked the question earlier, and when I was out and the phone rang, I had some other opportunities as well. But coaching against this defense and listening and watching the offensive coaches struggle and complain every time we played against it, I thought it was problematic. So I wanted to learn it. And, I'm really grateful to Coach Long because he never let anybody outside the family come in and work on the defense, and he kind of adopted me a little bit, and so I got to be able to be a part of that.
What kind of personnel is important in this defense, especially up front?
Well, a lot of college football, minus a few exceptions, defenses have had to become pretty multiple, because unless you're just really, really, really talented, you don't get to just line up and stop people. They've got answers on offense, and now they've got helmet communication, so they've got real answers all the way up to 15 seconds left on the play clock, helping the quarterback. So to play defense, you have to be multiple, in my mind, and big and fast guys that are athletic in space. But then you have to have guys that can slug it out. I mean, nothing's changed. I mean, when you're recruiting, and I suppose that's the question a little bit. When you're recruiting, I mean, defensive front guys are defensive front guys, linebackers are linebackers, and secondary guys are secondary guys. So it's not like you need some special cat to play this defense. Every roster in America has guys that possess the skills necessary to play in this defense.
Got here, but have you had a chance to look at the roster yet and see how those pieces might fit?
I've been day and night working on it. So we're right now we've looked at everybody on the roster that's here currently except the high school kids, and we're getting to that tonight.
You used the words aggressive and attacking, and some stuff that we've seen of you talking with Coach B. What does that look like? I think everyone maybe assumes that just means a lot of blitzing, but I'm sure it's not that simple.
Yeah, it doesn't just mean, sorry to interrupt you, it doesn't just mean blitz and pressure and man. You can get aggressive a lot of different ways. You can attack your assignment a lot of different ways. I would say that there's not a lot of hitting and reading in this defense. It's very assignment-oriented, and when the ball's snapped, you're going. And, what I would say is, as if you talk to a common fan, you say, what excites you about the Super Bowl, even though it was 6-0 or something most of the game, they're going to talk about some offensive play. Well, I think defense can be exciting too, and we hope to, we hope people stay in their seats and get excited watching our defense.
Bobby, have you found that the guys that run the 3-3-5, it's kind of a small community, kind of like the offensive guys that run the air raid or run the triple, and it's a really, really small community of guys that do it?
Yeah, we've over the years, we've taken time where we've collaborated with entire staffs at different places, and usually so way back in the day, Coach Price used to have a one-back clinic, which is kind of the precursor to the air raid stuff with all those guys. Well, we kind of about 7 years ago, we started our own 3-3-5 get together, and so we were plucking staffs from different leagues, and it was kind of cool in little old Missoula, Montana. We had an entire SEC defensive staff, a Big 12 staff, an ACC staff, so it was really cool to collaborate. So this is how we put we talked about the evolution of this and putting the package together and how it continues to evolve. We do study a little bit together, but that's common in football. At all levels, specifically college football, we collaborate a lot, and we share with our guys that we know and trust that we aren't going to play, at least in the near future on the schedule.
I know that Coach Long is kind of famous for having names for the defense. A Rover, an Aztec, a Lobo. Do you have any names to use? Are you going to adapt any of those for Illinois?
We're trying to figure that out a little bit right now, but yeah, we're trying to figure it out. I mean, we could be pretty simple and just call them the nickel and the free safety and the middle linebacker and the right side linebacker. But yeah, we're going to try. We'll hopefully be a little more fun for you to report on. Okay.
A couple more of this. How long after you took the job did you see the week 4 game against Washington in the schedule?
I have not watched the entire. Oh, the schedule, you mean? Oh, I saw that first thing. I mean. We actually talked a little bit about that this morning. I haven't coached in the Big Ten, but I understand they've been pretty good. This happened so fast, guys. And Coach called me, and I was fired up about it. But it's been a little bit of drinking out of fire hose. I've been underwater a little bit, just learning names and learning who works here and trying to figure out. It's pretty easy to figure out some of the marquee players, but we're trying to put the pieces together. So we've been working really hard this week, and it's been fun being around. I'll tell you what, these players at this university are quality guys. They work hard. When they greet you, they look you in the eye and shake your hand. These are good dudes in this program.
Can you talk to the recruiting piece of this and what your role is going to be, and maybe how it's going to be different, of course, recruiting at the power forward level? Yeah,
well, one thing we're blessed with is a head coach that works really hard in recruiting. We've got a recruiting staff like all good places do. I've seen the guys running around. The recruiting staff does a great job here, but recruiting's the name of the game. Recruiting's everyone's job. So where our recruiting staff and the head coach tells me to be, that's where I'm going to be.
We'll finish with Joe here.
The 3-3-5 is not necessarily a defense you see a great deal in the Power Four. So what gives you confidence that your adaptation, your spin on it, can be successful?
Yeah, and it's when reporting, you always want to put a label on what it is, and we got the question on Rocky's defense and all that, but this, you want to put the label 3-3-5 on it. We may never be in 3-3-5 if that's not what our personnel dictates. So we're going to try to do our best to put our players in the right spot, and then run the defense is malleable, so we can get our bodies in the best spot to help them excel, right? So, when you say, hey, you're running that 3-3-5 scheme, we don't operate just in one box. This is a pretty broad-based, flexible deal where we can put a lot of people in a lot of different spots. So coverage is the coverage, the front's the front, and we can be pretty broad-based. All right, it's nice to meet everybody. Thank you.
We'll bring Coach B back up here. Coach, start us with the statement, and then we can get the questions.
Yeah, just to obviously follow up with some of the things Bobby said there. So it was kind of interesting. I don't know who asked the 3-3-5. Was that Jude? The most prominent call the entire time that I've been here over the last 5 years is a 3-3-5. We have 3 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, and 5 DBs. Probably have run it near 75% of the time, right? But I called it a 3-down, right? It's just. When I knew this transition was happening, and when I talked to some of the coaches or to the players, I said, hey, just think of our peso package. It's just going to be, guys might be aligned in different positions. We'll definitely have different words for saying what we're going to do, and the philosophy is going to change in a big time way. So that is the part that kind of made me. I knew that we were transitioning this before I knew it was going to be Bobby. I knew that this was going to be something that. I had really spent a lot of time, even before this year, looking at. I said the other day when I was in the NFL, I became a fan of this package just because I had to evaluate players that played in that scheme, and that's when you guys just took it. I was going after an NFL guy, and then when I said couldn't do it till after the Super Bowl, you thought I was going after an NFL guy, and everybody thinks they had leads. This is the only guy I offered the job to. It's the only guy that I talked to. It's the only guy that I gave the opportunity to. So. It's great when I message because you follow that lead, which is awesome. But what you hear is what you hear. It's not what is real reality, right? I know the reality of where it's at. So I think that was really prevalent for me. I really, really like the capability of him and what I've seen in his defense to adjust to players, not just year to year, but within a season. One of the things that I really liked, I was interviewing a coach that coached in his system that I think will be joining us, and I asked him about his individual periods, and he's like, what do you like to do? One of the things I ask an assistant coach is an individual period is when I believe individually you can make an effect on your team as a coach, because individual means that coach has individual time with his individual players. And when I asked that question, the coach said, well, who are we playing? And that was such an appropriate answer because in the game of football, who you play week to week makes a huge effect on what you call and who we're playing against and who that coach might be coaching against on the other side of the field. So it's a really adaptable defense. Super excited to see it be a part of our reality. There is going to be transition because different words, different things. We'll have some things happen defensively that we had never had, like a double call on defense where you play a zone versus how they align. The communication from the sideline to the field will be different on how guys are aligned. Within our current package, there'll be players that play positions that are different words to what they're saying, to Robert's point, to what they're going to do in this package. It's just going to be maximizing our best players to the best of their ability. That's the best way to phrase it. So super excited for that to come out. So a little bit of a transition at the end of this press conference. Jared Elliott, who is our new tight ends coach, will be available for you guys to interview a question or two with him. Super excited. A guy that when I made the decision to split the special teams tight ends rule, I knew I was immediately going to be after a tight end coach, a guy that came to the front of my list. Had a couple connections, obviously an offensive coordinator with Coach New, who's in our building already, and Mike has been with me a year, and he literally, every time I had an opening, I go to him and say, hey, do you got somebody? And he'd be like, no. And because I just think he's one of those coaches very similar to me, he only recommends people that he would hire. And as soon as I made that decision, as soon as I told the staff what I was getting ready to do, he literally reached out to me in the first 5 minutes of that conversation and said, hey, I got a guy you want to talk to, which was Coach Elliott, who was then at New Mexico. So super excited to get him in the building. He started with us on Monday as well, and saw him on the field with our guys on Wednesday, and just the immediate reaction out of them to have his presence, his awareness is really cool. So he'll be available at the end. We're just wrapping up week 4. I've always, since I've been here, whether you guys knew what was going on or not, I have summer 1 and summer 2. Summer 1 usually runs the first 8 weeks of our spring semester here that will take us all the way up to spring break. The university is very set in their ways, which actually worked awesome. I had no idea until I got here. We always start classes on a Tuesday after Martin Luther King. We go 8 weeks spring break. We'll come back on the back end of that, go 5 weeks of spring ball, and then we'll have the month of May for the guys to go home, and then we'll start an 8-week window starting June 1st, which will go 8 weeks all the way up to our last week of discretionary week before we start fall camp. So our guys are 4 weeks into that. At the end of basically tomorrow or Saturday will be the end of that, and then my coaches and I will be gone next week. Our coaches haven't had more than 2 days off since going back to July. And as a head coach, I need one too. So we're going to take a break next week, allow my coaches to get out of town, allow the new coaches to kind of transition. I would like to have pretty much everybody in place by that next week. So we get 3 straight weeks before we go to spring break. That is really going to be a huge emphasis on what we've got for spring ball, installs, offense, defense. Obviously, I have 2 new coaches on offense. I expect to name a running back coach here probably within the next 5 to 6 days. I've never really rushed the hiring process. Obviously, I knew I had transition, but in January, I wanted to concentrate on being a great as much as I could. So the new football rules only allow me as a head coach to be out till January 31st. So I was out literally every day. I was ironically very close to here at a pizza party in a high school gym, not too far down the road. And that was my last event at 7:30, went till about 10 o'clock that night with a family. And then I was off the road, and I can't go back on the road until next fall. So we don't get May recruiting. We don't get spring recruiting as high school coaches. So I wanted to maximize those opportunities in January. Came back in, immediately started working on the hiring process. At that point, obviously, I knew the transition that was going to happen with Aaron, and then the timing for Bobby was awesome. I do believe, I don't know whoever reached out. I think I called him on Thursday, had a conversation, but he already had 2 NFL teams call him, and opportunities that existed in that world on special teams and defense, and I knew I kind of wanted to go that direction, so I accelerated my process, had the conversations with the people I needed to have, and then he said, let's talk tomorrow. Tomorrow would have been Friday, and I couldn't reach him all day. I kept going to voicemail, and I'm like, oh shit, he's on a plane, he's going somewhere. Well, he was in his favorite fishing hole, being a retired coach, which he should be, right? And so it was interesting to have that moment where I was kind of like a little bit anxious. I'm like, okay, and finally got a hold of him late Friday, Saturday, booked him for a flight Monday, and then once he saw it, and super excited to have him here. So the rest of those coaches will be named here in the next couple, probably 7 to 10 days, and we'll go forward from there. So with that, open up for also did Caden Fagan, ironically with Jared. Caden came to me probably the first week of December. It was after the last game, but it was before we started bowl prep, so I think it was that championship week. I got a text from Fagan. He said, hey, Coach, you got a minute? And I'm like, oh, boy, right, this is going to start. I hadn't had all my meetings yet, and I thought something might be up, and maybe and he just literally came in. He said he sat down, he goes, I want to move to tight end. And I'm like, all right. We'd already had some conversations, and he had conversations. So even though he finished the bowl game and in the running back spot, did an unbelievable job for us, he transitioned to the tight end. But on the flip side of that, then Jordan Anderson moved back to the running back room. So those kinds of guys have kind of flipped spots. We've had almost 20 new portal kids come in. All the new high school kids have had a couple guys with injuries. Jacob Eberhard had a shoulder surgery. King Liggins also had a knee surgery they had to have fixed. So those guys have been a little limited on the front end up here. But for the most part, all that stuff has been checking out pretty good. And going forward, we had several guys get postseason surgeries. Matt Bailey's gone incredibly well. He was down there working out today, just looking as good as he's ever looked. Excited about him. Tanner Heckel actually had postseason surgery on his shoulder as well, so he won't be with us during spring ball. But all those guys, everything has been going according to plan. Unfortunately, Stoffel, just this past Saturday, was running a route, felt a pop in his foot, and he broke his fifth metatarsal, so he'll have surgery tomorrow in Indy, but should be about a 2.5, 3 month recovery, so we should have him back with us this summer. In a weird kind of way, I called him on Saturday night. I know he was down, but that really could have popped at any time. I'm kind of glad it popped now, because if it would have waited till 2 months, 3 months from now, then he would have been in question for the fall. So everything moving in the right direction there. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Did you anticipate Coach Jamison looking for opportunities?
Yeah, so JMO and I, we've been together 5 years. He played for me, coached for me early on, especially when I was in the NFL. He asked me about that experience. He had interviewed for NFL D-line jobs the last 2 years. Last year, I'd literally, for about 24 hours, the GM that was at the place that was interviewing him called me and said, hey, the first time it was like, hey, he's 3 of 3, all right, then he'd be 2 of 3, and then he's like, hey, it's between him and another guy. And I knew it was just a matter of time. I've been down this road. I think I've lost 5 coaches in the NFL in the last 2 years. I think I've lost about 20 coaches in my career. You can feel when it's coming. Got an unbelievable message from him today. He literally walked into his first meeting with ownership, and the first thing they talked about was they were looking for tough, smart, dependable players. And he sent that to me, and I thought that was a pretty common message. One of the things we tell our kids every day when they're sitting in these meetings is, I'm preparing you for the moment when I'm not with you, right? Like, I'm preparing you for the moment. Everybody wants to get better. J-Mo has wanted to have an NFL career in the coaching world, and now that moment has come. I'm pretty excited for him.
Two-parter with just kind of this defensive evolution.
Yeah.
When specifically did you identify that you wanted to go to maybe more of what Bobby runs?
Yeah.
When did you identify Bobby as the person you wanted to
Well, Bobby, when we knew each other before my other coaching, before I went in the NFL, right? So actually he was a name that popped up on my radar when I came back to this league. I interviewed 2 or 3 guys, but at that point, that was 2021, coming out of COVID. He'd been back at Wyoming. He was on my list, and it just wasn't in the right time, right place where he was, where I was. Obviously brought in 3 candidates, ended up hiring Ryan, and who kind of stayed in this scheme. I really felt the last 2 years. So one of the reasons when I came here, when Ryan came in, I told Ryan, like, hey, I don't want to run Missouri's defense. I don't want to run my defense that we were running the last couple of years in the NFL. I want to make an Illinois defense. So we combined and created this 3-down package that had a lot of variations to it in coverage. A lot of it was man-free, but it was also man-free that played to zone and man-free that looked like 3 and played to 2. It was very unique. Nobody else in this league was running it. There were some 3-down teams, but like that year, my first year, we got our ass handed to us by Wisconsin, right? And they ran a completely different 3-down package. And that's when I began to realize, like, hey, people are running 3-downs, but they're not really running our defense. Well, now in this league, you probably have a dozen teams. When I go through and look at the teams we played and watching teams on film, you probably have 2/3 of the league that runs a similar defense to what we run, a 3-down, cover 3, man-free variations, and it's just not very unique. And I think for us here at Illinois, anything that we can do that's unique preparation in a week time is a very, very advantageous position. Of course, you got to play well, but that's when I really began to think the last 2 years, what we had to do different. I think people are just getting a lot of preparation on us, even though they aren't preparing for us. And the really first revolution of that was when we were a really good team in 2022. Before that, no one had prepared during the out of season for Illinois. And all of a sudden, we come on the scene, have one of the better defense in the country, and everybody prepared for that all year. 23 wasn't great. 24 was obviously a lot better. 25, but there was one. For me, there's a lot of key ingredients to defense, but scoring defense is a big one. bottom line, if you don't give up a lot of points, you have a chance to win games. And we just thought that was one area. And if you look up Coach Hauck's defenses since he's come back in the second tenure, once he's run his defense, they've literally been one of the, not just in their conference, but in college football, and especially in their division, have been a top 10 scoring defense almost virtually every year. And that's probably what's intrigued me more than anything.
Saying not to focus too much on the labels, but in the Citrus Bowl you ran some of that
100%.
stack, right? And I think last spring you ran. Were you toying with it then? Like,
absolutely.
And what do you like about that style?
Well, first off, I think a guy like Matt Bailey, who has a lot of versatility, right, and he's in the middle and he's making a lot of plays. You'll see this defense like literally serve it up, buttercup, and the fact that we've run a 3-3-5 without calling it a 3-3-5 is also very advantageous. I think you'll naturally have some DNs that become noses, some outside backers that become DNs, some safeties that become outside linebackers, and vice versa. The structure. So my goal and my intent is to layer this defense front, second level, third level, and have someone in that room that comes from our defense of the past and our defense of the future. Right, so Bobby is going to be a walk-around coordinator. I did that very specific when I offered him the opportunity. I said, hey, my intention and goal is to keep you off the position room name, so you can literally walk in, and he's coached safeties, he's coached outside backers, he's coached defense, like he's literally coached it all. So I want him to be able to have that flexibility. Something I had actually evolved with Aaron. We were going to make him a walk-around guy as well. I just think it was something that was important for us to go forward. So. That's that. I've got a couple guys on campus now. I plan on bringing someone either from Montana itself or from someone that's coached in this system. I have a defensive line coach coming in today that's from this system who's never coached with these guys, but is a guy that's come highly recommended from someone who I know ran this system. So it's kind of a blend of everything to go forward.
Do you think Caden can bring this team at tight end?
Well, first off, when he ran that swing route against USC and he clips 21 miles an hour, I'm like, holy shit, that kid can run, right? And then he just, as we brought coaches through, and we'll be down in the locker room or down in the weight room watching guys work out, I'm like, hey, this is a guy, that's guy, and they all go, who's that, right? Like he just, physically is a very dominant player, both his physicality but also his ability to run. And it kind of sounds unusual, but so I had a kid early in my career that played for me, is by the name of Dallas Clark, who was a linebacker, right? And you know him because he's a great tight end, but I knew him first as a walk-on inside linebacker, and he was first in every drill that we ran. He could go change direction. He was great on special teams, but he couldn't read a guard pull to save his ass, right? So I'm like, hey, when Kirk came in, I'm like, let's move this kid to tight end. And then when you play offense, you know three things that the defense doesn't. You know the play, you know the snap count, you know what you're doing when the ball is snapped. Defensive players can't get a line until you get a line. They never know what to do until you move, and they never know the snap count, right? And there's just guys that are catered to that better than the other guys, and that's what drove it forward.
Where you got velocity-wise right now? You still got some spots you can fill before bulking up?
Yeah, I have, for sure, probably 5 roster spots. I did the same thing a year ago. I never fill up. This world of college football is just too unique. We had 2 guys last year that transition happened in college football that happened way after the portal windows opened. And when there's a head coaching change, you have 30 days, basically 5 days and another 15. But that's just for them to get in the portal. So now, guys, our window to get kids in school here at Illinois is closed, but we could get guys in June. So I purposely I didn't take anybody else. I added some high school guys there at the end, which we talked about last week, but I knew there was going to be transition to college football. I didn't know particularly at our signing date that this was going to be, a chance off of Montana's roster. But, anybody that gets in the portal now, we're open for business just like always.
Brett, you talked about being a CEO. How does hiring a former head coach to be your defense coordinator?
So you'll notice a trend. Jared Elliott, what was he? Head coach at Western Illinois. You know who his first victory is against? Bobby Hauck. I was sitting there interviewing Jared Elliott, and I got a little bit of a lineage of Western Illinois guys in my building just by chance. I did not on purpose. Coach Ward coached at Western Illinois, so they didn't offer me out of high school. That's beside the point. I'm not bitter. But one of the things that I was sitting there talking to Jared, and he's talking about things I asked him about. I always ask coaches about their experience, and he said, my first game ever, I was able to beat Montana. They were nationally ranked, and beat Coach Bobby Hauck, who's a really good coach. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, I know about him. Like I'm saying in my head, and I'm just listening to it. So I brought those guys up, introduced them to the team, and I gave Coach Elliott a chance to brag in front of the team about that. I think experience in this day and age is a really, really high level thing, right? Obviously, to lose Aaron, to lose J-Mo, to lose Thad, to lose Dish, those guys have a lot of experience in this building, but a lot of them were younger coaches when I hired them. And I think that's what I needed at that time. It was a different world. Those guys all had to recruit. Coach Henry, Coach Lunny, Coach Miller, and Coach Jameson, because of the world of college football, those guys don't go out on the road for me anymore. I don't have my coordinators or my line coaches on the road. I put recruiting coaches on the road. So I just think it's a better time. I needed a more mature, everything that I've done right now since the last game to where we are today is how do I make 2026 great? That's been my message. My wife, I'll go home, she'll ask me how the day is, what decision you're making. I keep saying to her, I'm just trying to make 2026 great. It's just a different world. I don't worry. I am worried about 27, 28, and 29, but because of the portal world and the world that's been created, I think there's more of an emphasis on a NFL style of year-to-year play than ever before, and that has to do with coaching as well.
You mentioned mixing up splitting up tight ends and special teams. On the back half of that, do you have a overall plan of what you want to do with special teams?
Yeah, Chris Hurd will be our special teams coordinator. He comes in-house. Working through that side with him, but he's a guy, so Chris Hurd worked for me at Arkansas. Chris Hurd then got taken to Florida Atlantic with Charlie Partridge, who's also the D-line coach now at Notre Dame, and he went with him, and then I actually got him an interview with the Patriots when I was there, and thought really highly of him. When he came here, the last two guys we interviewed were Dish and Chris, and at that time we went with Dish, but I asked Dish, hey, would you be opposed to the guy that finished second in this race? And Chris came in, and since he's been here, has just been incredibly valuable. And it's as much transition is happening. I knew that some of the continuity that he brings is going to be absolutely awesome.
Anything else?
I guess with your defensive staff, it seems like you're pivoting from a lot of guys that you coached, as players to maybe guys you haven't worked with before. What do you think about that, and what made you maybe make that move?
Yeah, so first I didn't make it, they made it, right? Like people, if they come to me with an opportunity that they're excited about, I don't want to stand in the way. Like I remember I was a very young coach, and I had a defensive coordinator position that was offered to me, and my head coach didn't let me do it. And I didn't know at the time, but I'm thankful he did. It was to take over as defense coordinator of an air raid type defense or offense, and that probably would have been something that set back my career, right? I interviewed for the head coaching job at Ball State, and all of a sudden I got a call that I was the number, it was down to me and another guy, and I didn't get it, and I was very thankful I didn't get it because I never would be where I'm at today if I'd taken that job. Same thing, Miami Dolphins, right, had an opportunity. Didn't take it, didn't move it, and I think sometimes your careers are defined more by things that you don't take than the ones you do take, and I think that's the same thing with Aaron when he came to me. Obviously, I talked to Coach Ash, so half of Notre Dame, their D-line, their D coordinator, and DB coach now all have been with me, right? So as I'm getting older, more and more guys that I've coached are other places, so I understand the value of bringing guys in the room, especially when I was coming in here to set Illinois up for sustainable success. There was no better examples of guys that I wanted to be than my former players, right? So that drove a little bit of that. And then obviously when Ryan transitioned to hire Aaron, I'd do that 100 times over, right? And a chance for him to grow, us to grow. And then I think as this cycle came through, I definitely wanted to go in a direction defensively, which is why we made this change. And now to put a person at each, I've never been in this defense. So the great thing for me is I'm learning this defense as our players learn it. That's the greatest thing that could ever happen. And so if it's foreign to me, I definitely know it's foreign to them. If something's not clear to me, it's definitely not going to be clear to them. So I'm a good guinea pig for this whole thing to happen. So I'm super excited about that. We still may have some former guys come in the building. I know a lot of – you coach for 18 years, you got a lot of former players. So the tight end job got down to one of my former players and Jared, and by far Jared was the best option for us, which is why we did it. So I've never been blinded by anything that's been associated with me. That's not really part of who I am. It's a good byproduct, and I still got Art Sikowski in the building. I got guys in the weight room with Tank that – was not played for me, but he was with me at Arkansas. There's guys throughout the building that have a huge connection to me in the past.